Hello, everybody. Here we are, day 4 of 30 of the 30-day challenge that I am doing in our group. Doing it a little bit later today because I wanted to make sure I got my son to sleep first. So I wanted to address a question that has come up before, which is how can we stop ourselves from reliving old patterns, right? How do we stop ourselves from seeing danger at every corner and really open ourselves up to receive positive things, right? So there's a lot of ways we can talk about this. We are talking about limiting beliefs because basically what you expect is what you call in. And that's what we mean when we say patterns. So, cognitive behavioral therapy is pretty much all about that, retraining your thought patterns, right? And so basically CBT really works with what's called the manifesting current. Okay, so basically the manifesting current, when you're working with CBT, it's trying to restructure the way you think about things, the way you find evidence for and proof of things, so that you can kind of step out of emotional reasoning. Now, there's a ton of videos that you could find on cognitive behavioral therapy, so I'm not going to belabor that point. What I would like to do actually is talk about more of a psychospiritual approach. In particular, I'd like to talk about limiting beliefs and patterns, or let's say stuck or rigid patterns, as actually a symptom of a blocked third eye. Okay, and I actually brought my chakra stone for the third eye today. And so basically the shadow aspect, a lot of times we talk about the great empowering aspects of the chakras. And if you're not familiar with the chakras, they're energy centers in the body that come out of the Ayurvedic tradition, but you can find similar approaches and theologies across different cultures and religions. So there's the crown. There are a lot of chakras, but the 7 main ones are the crown, the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, which is in your abdomen, the sacral, which is the womb space on a woman, and the genital region. So what I want to talk about today is the third eye and the role that the third eye plays in when we fall into stuck patterns. So the shadow aspect of the third eye is illusion. And so in considering the role of illusion in your life, you really want to ask yourself, how do my perceptions and beliefs limit my possibilities? Because when you're operating from a limiting belief, it means that you're not allowing yourself to see the evidence all around you that actually supports an alternative perspective. So you tend to only have tunnel vision and you see potential disaster everywhere. And so this is really the prison of thinking that you can know and control everything. And so a limiting belief really gives us the illusion that we know what to expect. And so we actually find this pretty comforting, even if we expect the worst. And so by surrendering to this possibility of the unknown, it means that we have to also allow for the possibility that things may not be as bad as you expect them to be. But you have to be willing and open to see it that way. Now, I have provided this example before in previous videos, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning here again. I call it the red bicycle syndrome, the red bike syndrome, right? So, for example, let's say we write a desire statement. If it is in service of all and alignment with my highest good, I'd like to manifest a shiny red car to make my commute easier and lose 10 pounds before my high school reunion in a couple of months. Now, let's say a week later, your cousin shows up with a shiny red bike. Bought it for his nephew, lost the receipt, doesn't fit him, can't return it. Do you want the bike? Now, on the surface, you may think that this has absolutely nothing to do with your manifesting intention. It's not a car, it's a bike, and it's not that celebrity diet pill that you wish would go on sale on Amazon. But what if a shiny red car would get you pulled over more often? What if you'd be in standstill traffic every morning? What if your insurance rates go up and then you have to work longer, harder hours to pay for it? What if driving every day actually makes you gain weight because you're not walking as much, right? So in this respect, the bike is actually the best solution to your problems. You get to work faster because there's no traffic in the bike lane. You're rapidly losing weight because you're already riding 2 miles a day and burning calories. And you're also saving money on gas, insurance, and you're reducing your carbon footprint. So it's also in service of all, right? And so that in and of itself is an abundance that you manifested, but only if you can see it. And so when we get stuck in these patterns of beliefs, whether it's in relationships or something else, We stop being able to see that there are opportunities to step out of what we may feel like we are trapped in. We just don't acknowledge it. We only look for evidence for what supports our belief. So if you're coming from a place of, I'm trying to make everything come as close as possible to this fantasy of what you think a relationship should look like, or something that you've created in your head as an escape from something crappy that happened to you in childhood, it's actually a form of tunnel vision, and it's a block in your third eye, okay? Because you can only see in one direction, and you tend to miss out on the multiplicity of opportunity. So now the universe has what I like to call a moon's eye view of your life, right? But you're really only able to perceive moment to moment. And so abundance in any form, as per the example I just gave, is really just a matter of perception. So I really think that it's the same thing as surrendering to the unknown, right? You have to open up to your higher power. And this really, in a nutshell, is the act of allowance, right? Allowing yourself to see and experience things in a different way. And when you do that, you actually open yourself up to receiving wisdom, consciousness, and above all, love. Because love is the highest authority that you can step into, and it's also the most rewarding. It's not effortless, but it is an effort worth making. Now, there are 3 myths that we could associate with blocks in the third eye. Today, I'm going to talk about myth 1, and tomorrow I'll talk about myth 2, and the following myth 3. So here's a myth that's typically related to the third eye. If it's not logical, don't act on your intuition. But the truth is that intuition supersedes logic. And although it may not make sense to you in the moment, your intuition, what I'm going to say is synonymous with your higher self, is always attuned to the bigger picture, right? To that moon's eye view. And so to manifest something in the material world, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, right? You have to receive, your crown actually draws attention to whatever it is that you want. And as you bring it down into your third eye, you assign intention to it, right? We use my chakra stone again, the third eye. You actually give intention to your desire, okay? And this ultimately provides a blueprint, and it gives shape to the passion and drive of your lower chakras so they can actually bring them into concrete form. So your higher self, your knowing, your intuition, it's basically passive, okay? You can't force it. And over again, a lot of people have this sense of urgency and desperation when they want to contact me, and they say, how do I fix this problem? Okay. And they're usually super dissatisfied when I say, you're asking the wrong question. The question is, how do I learn to sit with this uncomfortable feeling? Everybody's trying really hard to move away from the uncomfortable feeling. What thing can I grab outside of myself or move towards so that I don't have to feel this thing? But that's just going to perpetuate your situation. Okay, there are no quick fixes to this. No quick fixes to this. All right. Because what happens is when you finally ask, how can I learn to sit with this feeling and allow it to be what it is and move through me and witness it, which you probably have never really allowed yourself to do, that's actually a process of openness and receptivity. Okay. And I think we kind of get lost in this because you might hear a lot of like law of attraction people being like, don't focus your attention and energy on something that is negative because you're just going to perpetuate the negativity in your life. And there is some truth to that. But the problem is that most people, when they're experiencing a negative thing, or they're perseverating, or they're obsessing, or they're being overly analytical, it's actually because they are moving into a headspace as a way of escaping the feeling. Okay, so they're not releasing the feeling. So you have to allow for this moment where you actually allow it to move through you and then allow that to happen. Most of the time when we are in a negative state, we're just beating ourselves up. And that's actually not feeling it. You think, oh, I feel so miserable, I feel depressed. But that's actually you not feeling it, if that makes any sense. That's you fighting the feeling and then making you increasingly depressed and obsessive and anxious. Okay. So the other piece of this is that the rational mind, when it gets wind of an uncomfortable feeling, you suddenly fall into emotional reasoning. And we've talked a little bit about this in our feed, right? I'm fearful that my partner is going to abandon me. Therefore, they must be planning to leave me. I feel turned on and aroused by this person. Therefore, they must really like me and want to seduce me. I feel like I'm not getting what I want in this partnership, so my partner must be intentionally withholding and trying to control me. I feel I'm overwhelmed and smothered by this person in my relationship. Therefore, they must be trying to control me. Okay. So this is kind of giving voice to the limiting beliefs and the mechanisms that are going on in our unconscious mind. Now, the rational mind, when it starts slipping into that emotional reasoning, it tends to think in pieces. So one piece follows another, right? And so this is read logically from one thought to the next. And while this helps us synthesize, the whole from its individual parts, it does not help us grasp the larger whole on an experiential level. And so that larger whole allows us to derive meaning and sense of purpose in our lives. So, it kind of goes back to that idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Intuition and the unconscious recognition of a pattern without needing to crystallize that pattern into a rigid illusion, like a limiting belief, like I'll never have a happy relationship, I only ever attract toxic people, any number of beliefs you might be telling yourself on a regular basis, right? That is going to only call itself in. And that's actually a crystallized pattern, and that's a block in your third eye. So for example, let's say you have a page with a bunch of jumbled dots on it. And as you draw a line and you begin to connect the dots in a logical sequence, a pattern begins to emerge. Connect the dots, right? And so your rational mind, it perceives only the next dot. But through the third eye, your imagination and your intuition, which is really the purpose of the third eye, you begin to understand and make predictions about what that final image is going to be before you've connected all the dots, okay? And beyond that, whatever image does emerge, it could have a resonance with your intuitive or your archetypal self, right? Which is illogical in nature anyway. But the point is that if every single time you predict that shape, that connecting those dots is going to be the same shape every single time, you've actually slipped in the shadow aspect of the third eye, because you now have a rigid belief about what that thing will be every single time, right? So the shadow aspect is illusion, right? You slip into that illusion that everything is going to be the same every single time. It looks close enough, therefore the same outcome is preeminent, right? But if you're able to really tap into and balance the third eye, the benefit of that is wisdom. So with wisdom, you're able to make approximate estimations and predictions, but you still know that you have to allow for maybe that last dot, right? That last connection may go somewhere else, right? So it's that allowance, it's that surrender to the unknown. It's being aware that you cannot possibly control and predict everything about the future, even if it looks similar to a previous situation, okay? And if you worry so much about something being similar to a previous situation, you will inevitably create that situation over again, okay? So what I would like to do now is I would like to do a little experiential with the third eye. So when I work with clearing my chakras, or I find myself stuck in a limiting belief, for example, I usually put a stone to wherever that energy center might be. I don't have my pendulum with me at the moment, but I might do a pendulum just to watch the energy spin. And I'll usually say, spin in a clockwise direction and then still when balanced. Okay. The other piece that I do is I play singing bowl. And the idea behind that is that because our bodies are made up of atoms and they are moving particles, and because everything is moving, everything has a hum, everything basically sings a song. And when your third eye is out of sync, right, when it has in a state of dissonance, the idea is that when you play a bowl, you can bring it back into harmony. So if you are struggling with patterns, like if you're struggling with the illusion that everything is always going to be the same, every potential partner is always going to treat you the same, that you're never going to get what you want in life, okay? You're struggling with some third eye stuff, probably some other stuff too, but at least the third eye for sure. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to invite you just to sit quietly and comfortably for a moment. And just allow yourself to witness your breath. The way the oxygen fills your lungs and the way you are releasing it. And I'd like you to call your energy home, wherever your thoughts, worries, or concerns may be outside of this present moment. Like ribbons, you're just going to slip it out of those entanglements and call it home, allowing it to become concentrated in your body, allowing your feet to be planted a little more firmly into the floor, really allowing yourself to sink into the seat, noticing the way that the chair or the mattress holds you, noticing your most subtle sensation and the most prominent. And if you have trouble getting into your body, you might also imagine roots growing from between your hips down into the earth, perhaps down your legs, down the soles of your feet, really grounding you into the earth. And so once you feel yourself really fully present and inside your body, I'm going to have you call your awareness and your attention to your third eye. And so that is that place in the center of your brow between your eyes. You might even touch it just to activate it. And so I invite you to draw your awareness and your attention there. And I'm going to play the bowl for you just for a brief, say 30 seconds or so. And I'd like you to enter into that space and to take a look around, to witness if it is a landscape, an interior space. Maybe it's just colors, images that pop up for you. Maybe it's just feelings. Maybe it's just static. And you know what? It's all information. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing that can go wrong. And if you might think, oh, this is just my imagination, that's perfect, because the third eye deals with imagination. Okay, so I'm going to play the bowl for you now. And whatever you may have witnessed in your third eye, I invite you to just breathe it in. Take it in through the oxygen, allowing it to become diffuse through your lungs into your bloodstream. Almost like a fragrance, you're just going to allow it to become very cell memory, sinking into your bloodstream, your muscle fibers, your bones. Just letting it become body knowledge. Because even if what you have witnessed does not make sense to you now, the wisdom you have received when the time is right will rise to your conscious awareness. And through dreams, intuition, creativity, your imagination, synchronicities in the environment, when the time is right, you will know what to do. Its deeper meanings will be revealed to you. And so just breathe that in, taking a snapshot of what you may be witnessing in your mind. And calling your energy, your attention back into the present moment, back into your body, back into the room. And I'm going to count backwards from 5 to 1. And when we reach 1, you may release this practice. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So from there, what I would encourage you to do is whatever you've witnessed, whatever you've experienced, I would encourage you to write it down, to draw it, to write a poem about it, to make music about it, to dance about it. Somehow allow your body to respond. Because your body, as I mentioned in our video yesterday, is the barometer for your transcendental self. Okay. And your transcendental self, it doesn't talk sequentially, right? Like the rational mind does. It perceives things from the perspective of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? And so that's why so often it communicates in images and metaphor, because images and metaphors are the whole, and we gain so many layers from those things in and of themselves. So I encourage you to play with whatever came up with you for you today, because most likely whatever it is, it speaks to whatever patterns you may be struggling with. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have a great night. And if any of you are willing to share what did come up for you in the feed below, I would love to see it. Have a great evening.